Okay, let's explore this. Today we're taking a deep dive into something pretty ambitious. The Internet Computer, ICP, and what the experts are saying about where its value might actually go.
Yeah, it's quite the project. We're talking about this groundbreaking blockchain network. It was developed by the DFINITY Foundation. And its core aim, really, is to extend the functionality of the internet itself.
Extend it how, exactly?
Well, effectively turning it into a kind of global decentralized computer. So think of it like a platform that can host back-end software, decentralized apps, dApps. And it does this using pretty advanced cryptography and some innovative tech for, well, scalability, efficiency, security, all the important stuff.
Right. That's a really powerful vision, and it makes our mission here today even more crucial, I think. We've got this stack of sources, price predictions, technical analyses, historical data, and the goal is to pull out the key nuggets, help you get really well informed about ICP's potential future. And I suspect we'll uncover some surprising facts and definitely some contrasting views along the way.
Oh, definitely. What's really fascinating, I find, is how ICP aims to fundamentally change the way the internet works. It's positioning itself not just as, another blockchain, but as a foundational layer, something that can host back-end software directly on this decentralized web. It's really about building a more robust, secure internet for maybe the next generation of applications.
And that's exactly where the market potential comes in, right? Our sources suggest its tech, its expanding utility. They're seen as promising for its future price. The expectation, or maybe the hope, is that demand for the ICP token itself will rise as more developers build on it, as adoption increases. It really makes you think, what would a truly decentralized internet mean for all of us? So, okay, with that big vision in mind, where is ICP actually standing today, like right now? As of, let's say, late June 2025, June 28th, 29th, we're seeing prices kind of hovering around, $4.73 to maybe $5.13, somewhere in there.
That's about right. And its market cap is sitting in the $2.5 to $2.7 billion range. Circulating supply is pretty high, over 532 million ICP tokens out there.
But what really jumps out, for context, is that all-time high. I mean, $750.73 back in May 2021.
Yeah, staggering.
It just highlights the huge journey ICP has had since that peak, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, this raises the important question, what are the technical indicators telling us about its momentum now? Because interestingly, you've got the fear and greed index, that broad sentiment gauge.
Right, showing if people are feeling bullish or bearish overall.
Exactly. And it's currently in the greed zone, around 63, 65. So general market optimism, perhaps. However, when you dig into the technical analysis, you get a more nuanced picture. Many key indicators, things like the 50-day and 200-day simple moving averages.
Those trend lines showing average prices.
Right. They often indicate the underlying momentum, and they're currently showing bearish trends or even sell signals across different time frames, 4-hour, daily, weekly charts. The RSI, the relative strength index, which measures price movement speed, it's mostly neutral, kind of sitting between 30 and 70. But it's worth noting Cryptopolitan's observation that ICP is, quote, attempting a bullish reversal.
Ah, okay. So some sign of life there.
Potentially. It apparently broke above its 20-day moving average, and they noted positive Chaikin money flow.
Which means more money coming in.
Generally, yeah. Capital inflow, often seen as a bullish sign. And analysts are watching key resistance levels pretty closely, like around $5.20 and $5.05.
That's a fascinating kind of paradox, isn't it? Market sentiment showing greed, but some core technicals are, like you said, waving a caution flag. How should someone listening, try to reconcile those signals?
Well, it often points to a market that's kind of in transition, The fear and greed index captures that broad, maybe more emotional sentiment. It can be swayed by recent gains or just general crypto market mood. The SMAs, those moving averages, they reflect the longer-term price action, the established trends.
So they're slower to react.
Exactly. So a bullish reversal attempt, like Cryptopolitan noted, suggests that while those bigger trends might still look bearish, there's a short-term fight happening, some positive momentum might be building. It's a dynamic tension, really.
Right, dynamic tension.
Okay.
Like that. Okay, now let's get to the main event for many, I suspect. The future price predictions for ICP.
Yeah.
And wow, what our sources reveal here is quite the spectrum, a real range of possibilities.
Oh, absolutely. For the short term, like the next few days or weeks, well, some sources predict pretty minimal movement, maybe slight increases. Coin Codex, for instance, they project a modest rise to maybe $5.32 by late July 2025.
Okay, so not much change there.
Not much. But then you have 3 commas looking at expert consensus, suggesting prices could just stay around current levels or maybe even drop slightly in the immediate future. In fact, some of their 2025 predictions are actually below where we are now.
Interesting. So conflicting views even for the very near term. What about the midterm, say 2025 through 2027?
Yeah, here the range gets much wider. You've got your conservative outlooks, maybe from Binance's user inputs or some experts cited by 3 commas. They generally keep ICP mostly in that $4 to $5 range, pretty modest increases.
Oh, okay.
But other sources paint a significantly more optimistic picture. Cryptopolitan, for example, forecasts a maximum of $11.20 for 2025, and they see a peak of $36.80 by 2028.
That's a big jump.
It is. And Investing Haven is even more bullish. They predict a range of $5.51 up to $21.95 for 2025. And they even mention a stretched bullish outcome of $30 if, and it's a big if, widespread adoption happens.
Adoption being the key variable there.
Always. For 2026, Investing Haven projects $19.25 to $41.88, and maybe heading towards $64 in 2027, but that depends on clearing certain key price levels. CoinCodex is also a bit more positive, predicting an average of $5.94 for 2025, rising to $11.76 for 2026, and then $12.81 for 2027.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of numbers to try and digest. It really does feel like looking at 5 different weather forecasts for the same day, doesn't it? So what does this all boil down to for the really long game? I mean, will ICP ever get back near that $750 high or even beyond?
Well, for the long term, 2028, 2030, and beyond, the divergence in these predictions becomes even more stark. It's quite something. On the conservative side, you have Binance users forecasting maybe $6.19 by 2030 and only $16.43 way out by 2050.
$16 by 2050. That's quite conservative compared to the hype.
Very. Conversely, the bullish predictions get really ambitious. Cryptopolitan sees a potential maximum price of $113.32 by 2031. Investing Haven projects ICP could reach up to $88.88 by 2030. They even suggest a high probability of hitting $100 before 2030.
Okay, triple digits.
Right. And they even throw out the possibility of $1,000, but maybe closer to 2050.
$1,000, wow. But wait, you mentioned another source.
Yes, CoinCodex's algorithm gives a very different picture. Its highest estimate is only $33.29 by 2050. And it directly states that ICP, quote, will not reach $1,000.
Okay, that is an incredible gap. I mean, $33 versus potentially $1,000 for roughly the same distant future. What does that massive difference tell us about how these analysts fundamentally view ICP? Is it just different models, or is it a bet on the tech versus, market cycles?
I think it often comes down to their core thesis, The more conservative outlooks tend to maybe extrapolate from historical crypto growth patterns. Perhaps they don't fully discount, or maybe they do discount, ICP's really unique potential to disrupt traditional internet infrastructure.
They see it more as just another crypto.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Whereas the more ambitious figures, the $100 or even $1,000 predictions, they typically seem to bake in these massive, almost unprecedented shifts in how we use the internet. They're assuming widespread, almost ubiquitous adoption of ICP's foundational tech by major companies, by developers. It's really a bet on the entire vision coming true, not just incremental growth within the existing crypto world.
Right. It's a bet on transformation. Okay, so with such a, frankly, dizzying array of predictions, the crucial next step has to be understanding what factors these analysts are actually weighing. What are they looking at when they crunch these numbers? What truly influences ICP's price?
Well, fundamentally, like any asset, it boils down to supply and demand. That's the bedrock. Internally, you have factors like updates to the network itself, changes in its rules, maybe even reward cuts for the node operators, the miners, so to speak. Those can influence the supply-demand balance.
Things specific to ICP.
Exactly. And then externally, you've got real-world events playing a big role. Things like government regulations always a factor in crypto, or new companies actually adopting and using internet computers technology. That's huge for demand. Even things like major crypto exchange hacks can shake confidence across the board, impacting ICP too.
Right, the macro environment.
Definitely. And sources also mention the concept of whales.
Ah, yes, the big holders.
Right. Entities or individuals controlling large amounts of ICP. And because the ICP market might be relatively smaller compared to, say, Bitcoin or major stocks, their large buy or sell orders can potentially move prices quite significantly, disproportionately even.
So market structure matters.
It does. Also, the cyclical nature of Bitcoin halvings gets mentioned. They've historically played a, quote, pivotal role in the broader crypto markets, often seeming to kick off wider market rallies. But ultimately, what the more bullish forecasts keep coming back to is continued technological advancements within ICP itself, and crucially, widespread institutional adoption. That seems to be the key driver for significant growth in their models.
And maintaining technical levels, too.
Yes, maintaining those key support levels on the charts is also seen as pretty essential for keeping that long-term bullish potential alive.
Okay, that makes sense. The drivers are a mix of internal tech progress, external adoption, market sentiment, and broader crypto cycles. Now, understanding where ICP has been can also give us some clues, maybe, about where it might go. It certainly had quite the journey already.
Oh, absolutely. Looking back, 2020 was really its emergence, its initial volatility with the ICO, the initial coin offering. That period was marked by, well, substantial excitement, lots of speculative trading, even before the mainnet fully launched.
Right, a lot of buzz back then.
Huge buzz. Then came 2021, which was the landmark year, the official launch, that remarkable surge in price, hitting the all-time high $750 in May, driven by just massive enthusiasm for its decentralized computing promise.
And man,
Well, then came 2022, a significant market correction, stabilization. Prices fell quite sharply during that broader crypto market downturn. It hit a lot of projects hard.
the crypto winter.
Exactly. And then 2023 marked the beginning of a sort of recovery. It seemed buoyed by some strategic developments, new partnerships, signs of stabilization, and maybe some growth. A more optimistic outlook started to return, albeit from a much lower base.
So quite the roller coaster. High hopes, a massive peak, a deep correction, and now maybe a slow recovery phase.
That seems a fair summary of the journey so far.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway here? We've explored Internet Computer's really ambitious vision. We've checked its current market pulse, that mix of greed and bearish technicals, and looked at this fascinating wide spectrum of predictions from, pretty modest gains to potentially reaching triple digits someday.
Yeah, and if we connect this back to the bigger picture, I think it really highlights how in dynamic markets like crypto, these predictions aren't certainties at all. They're often reflections of just different analytical approaches, different models, and maybe most importantly, different underlying assumptions about future adoption, about technological success.
Assumptions are key.
Absolutely.
So, as you listening reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this. What do you think will ultimately have the greatest impact on ICP's journey? Will it be the fundamental strength of its underlying technology? Or the broader market's often unpredictable cyclical nature? Or is it actually the very confidence, the widespread adoption, that these predictions are attempting to forecast in the first place? Something to think about.